Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton, Jenny Froome, and Greg White with you here, right here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Jenny, how are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. All the better for being here. I feel like I'm out for the night.
Well, you're dressed like you're going out, right? Here we are in our quarter zips, and you got your best duds on. So
I have.
welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We are chuffed to have you here with us here, Jenny, and we've got a wonderful guest.
See how he did that, Jenny?
I saw how you did that. That was
doesn't
very
sound
good.
that natural coming from an American. Please, Jenny, will you please say chuffed for us?
I'm very chuffed to be here.
I've never been accused of being bilingual, so I'm trying hard though. But Greg, good afternoon. Great to be back. It's been a busy week of live stream conversations and production, but this is kind of like the crown jewel. Today's conversation kicks off a brand new series that we're really excited about. Jenny's been a longtime friend for us and our team here, and it's been neat to find different ways to collaborate. And this is kind of the culmination of a variety of planning conversations through the pandemic and then some. And it's all going to be, this is focused on all the really cool things happening across the continent of Africa and throughout the region from a supply chain standpoint, from a business standpoint. Greg will probably talk about some entrepreneurial stories like today, right?
Yeah. If you know Jenny Froome, you're all the better for it. And if you don't know Jenny Froome, you don't know South Africa.
Oh boy. Greg,
Blushing.
Greg's coming in hot, Jenny, as always. So, but it's testimony to how excited we are about continuing working with you. So really quick, we've got a wonderful guest here today. Wonderful. We've already enjoyed and should have been recording the pre-show conversation with Kabir. But let's talk about SAPICS for a second. So you serve as COO. You've been serving the organization and the greater community region for quite some time. Admire all of that servant leadership, really. But tell us in a nutshell about SAPICS.
So thanks very big time for this opportunity in this program. It speaks exactly to what we've been trying to do for a long time, which is to shine the spotlight on supply chains in Africa. We're a member-based association, and we've been going for over 50 years, and we're based in South Africa. I'm actually based in Johannesburg. We're halfway between Johannesburg and Pretoria. And we are working to have supply chain management recognized as a profession in South Africa and ultimately across the continent. And I guess that's what we're all doing here is around the world as well.
Yeah.
So that's who we are and what we do.
Love it. And of course, folks can learn more at SAPICS, SAPICS.org. But more important than all of that is appreciate what you do as a leader that is tirelessly giving back and finding ways of elevating the conversations that need to be more visible globally. So we're going to do just that today. But before we bring on our guest, Gregory S. White, let's say hello to a few folks. We've got some old timers and some new timers in our community that are here. Kavan, great to see you here today via LinkedIn. Really enjoy all of your conversations and contributions. Mohammed is tuned in via YouTube from Saudi Arabia. Great to have you here with us, Mohammed. Haresh is with us via LinkedIn. Sneha is back with us, Greg.
Good deal.
Let's see here. Susan via LinkedIn. Shashank. I'll say that again. Shashank is with us here via LinkedIn. Great to have you here. Saman. Rhonda out in warmer Arizona here lately, Greg?
I should hope that it's warmer than it is here. It was 28 degrees this morning. That should give Rhonda something to crow about. She's going to say something like, it was all the way down in the 60s this morning.
Gary Smith is with us. And Jenny, I think you know Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Wonderful member and contributor. I think he just published a recent article, which doesn't surprise me. Sylvia in the holy city of Charleston, South Carolina is with us. So
I still have jam left over, but just barely.
But you know what? I don't have, Sylvia, is any jam or preserves or jelly. I am still feeling.
She actually sent me 2 jars. She may have meant for me to forward one to you.
Well, all in good fun.
Sorry, too tasty.
That's great to have you back with us, Sylvia, and everyone else. So we've got a wonderful, and by the way, Rhonda says 81 degrees yesterday and about 60 degrees now. So very jealous here, Rhonda. Okay. So, folks, one quick programming note before we bring on our guests is if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to find Supply Chain Now and wherever you get your podcast from. Subscribe for free. Money back guarantee, as Greg likes to say. And so you don't miss conversations just like this one here. All right, so let's bring on our featured guests here today. You're in for a treat. We have Kabir Shagaya, founder and CEO of Zippy Logistics. Kabir, good afternoon.
Everyone. Good afternoon.
Great to have you here. Really enjoyed our warm-up conversation. I've already got 6 of my 17 typical pages of notes based on what you've already shared, and really delighted to share your journey and your POV with our community here.
I'm glad to be here.
So, Greg, where we get started?
Speaking of which, I'm going to get my notes. I actually took notes yesterday, Scott. So
that never happens ever.
That should tell you how interesting our topics have been of late, right? I used a pen.
How well behaved you felt you needed to be, possibly.
So where we're gonna get started here. Before we get talking business, Greg, we're gonna get to know Kabir a little better, right?
Yeah, let's find a little bit out about you, Kabir. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you are now, right? And just enlighten the folks a bit.
Okay. Hi, guys. My name's Kabir Shagaya. I'm from Nigeria. I grew up in a couple of countries. I grew up in Ireland, went to school in Ireland for a few years, England, Wales, and then moved back to Nigeria to get to work. And then I think one thing I realized is that it was always very easy for me to fit into different countries because I tried to acclimatize with whatever environment I was in. And that's always helped me with all the businesses I've set up, because whenever you go into a new industry, it's like going to a new country. You have to learn the lay of the land and try and find a way to solve the problem for a profitable solution. So yeah, did that for a while. And then after that, I joined DFID as an intervention facilitator in Nigeria.
What was that again, Kabir?
DFID, the Department for International Development. So that's like the UK government's version of the World Bank. Yeah.
Got it.
So I worked with them for a couple of years, designing construction waste management systems and different systems and stuff like that. I realized I had a knack for it, so I joined the Clinton Foundation after that. So I worked for President Clinton for a couple of years. I was a city director for the Clinton Climate Initiative in Lagos, and I worked with carbon emissions and did a couple of projects regarding renewable energy and different projects like that. And then after that, I moved to Mayor Bloomberg's foundation, C40 Cities, which Mayor Bloomberg's the chair of the C40 Cities. I was director of C40 Cities for a couple of years as well. Then after that, I realized that, look, for me to make more impact, I need to be able to have a bit more leeway in how I manage operations. So because of that, I decided to start my own business. And I decided to go into logistics because I realized that supply chain is a gateway to impact in any society that you're in. Without supply chain, your society doesn't even start or finish. Supply chain systems have been built since the 60s and the 50s, are still being used in certain countries in the world right now. The train tracks set, and now even something as simple as the size of the train tracks you build determines the types of trains where you can buy the trains from. So supply chain isn't just about moving things left and right. It's about the design phase, how you design the logistics system. It's like I always say, like, in supply chain, you're only as rich as whose problems you're solving. If you're solving pedestrians' problems, you make pedestrian money. If you're solving large organizations' problems, you make large organization money. So what I try and do is I tackle the biggest problems in the industry, and I try and find the best way to tackle that. So I ran Zippy for, I think, about 8 years now, and we went from being an SME in the e-commerce industry to the largest player in the supermarket FMCG distribution industry in Nigeria right now. So yeah, that's it in a bit of a nutshell.
So Zippy is not just the really cool looking, I have to admit, the really cool looking bikes that you zip around town on to do kind of last mile delivery. There are some other things that you do there now, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So our company took a complete pivot. It's actually a very interesting story I actually want to tell on this call today, because you see, what people don't tell you about the entrepreneurship journey, especially in supply chain, is if you're in the supply chain industry and you're a small business, you will be tied to some large organizations that you have to jump. And when they say jump, you have to ask them how high. So if you're working for like a Walmart or an Amazon, they dictate the terms, and you just have to like go ahead with it. So now the problem with that is you need to learn to be flexible, but not too flexible. Now, what happened with me, for example, with the e-commerce bikes, as you said, we had about 150 bikes covering majority of all the states in Nigeria. And what happened in that situation was one of our key partners that we're working for got a new investor. And one of the conditions of that investor was they need to divest from Zippy and give some of my business to one of the companies that they were invested in. So another logistics company came in and had to take half of my business overnight, or they weren't going to get the money. So that happened. And I thought to myself, how can this happen after I spent 3-4 years building this fleet for this company? Now I haven't got the market, and there's no demand for my fleet in the market. So how am I going to sustain the business? So I had to make a couple of changes. And I realized that the most sustainable way to build a supply chain system isn't the easy way, the hard way. Don't go for the big clients. Sign 100 small clients instead of one big client. Because when you sign 100 small clients, you're helping small businesses grow, you're helping build the ecosystem, and you're creating a consortium of people who have a larger voice than one large organization. So what we did there is we realized that we couldn't sustain the operations of the e-commerce industry because of the competition that was coming in. So we went into the supermarket industry, where we decided, okay, fine, you know what? If I can pick up 3,000 packages a day and deliver to 3,000 individuals in their homes on a daily basis, I'm sure I can easily go to 100 supermarkets across the country and do the exact same thing with less effort for more money. So I did a complete pivot from last mile with bikes to first mile with trucks.
Give us a time frame for this pivot. What time frame we're talking about?
The pivot took me 16 months.
And this was a couple of years ago, or when was this?
A couple of years ago. I think a couple of years ago when I started the pivot, it took me 16 months. And by the time the pivot was completed, we've now gone from generating about 100. We've grown like by 4 times the size of the company. Our company valuation is now about $17 million. And before we started this business, our company valuation is about $7 million. So we've actually grown our valuation by $10 million in the space of 3 years just by this pivot. Because now the people's problems we're solving are bigger. We're solving people's problems like Kellogg's, Multipro, Pernod Ricard, Moet Hennessy. We're solving big people's problems, so they have big solutions to them. Well, when we're solving the e-commerce solutions, we were only dealing with, and I'm so glad we spoke backstage about co-opetition, because with the e-commerce industry, I was heavily dependent on the other factors, because I was the last mile. So I had to wait for the second mile to get to me, I had to wait for the pickup to get to me, I had to wait for the hub, the sorting. There were mistakes in the sorting. Whenever there was a wrong order, I was always left with the end user, with the customer.
Right, when you take the heat.
So I used to get the flack for someone else's mistake. But now with this new model, because I own the whole value chain, I can control the quality of service that my company represents. So
I want to back up for a second. And Greg, I want to pick your brain for a second. So Greg is our I can't use the wizard word anymore, so you took that away from me. He's our entrepreneurial guru here, right? Tequila Sunrise is his series that focuses on all those stories. And you mentioned a word that a lot of folks may not really wrap their head around, and clearly it's important to us as entrepreneurs. So valuation, Greg. So for the handful of folks in our community that may not, may not be in the entrepreneurial space, why is that so important? Why do we hear Kabir talk about that?
Well, I mean, that's the nearest thing that a private company has to a stock price. So to use Kabir's example, a few years before, the company was worth $7 million. Right. So however many shares that is, let's just say you had 7 million shares. It's $1 a share. Oh, gosh, I should not have done it that way. Let's say it's 1 million shares, $7 a share. OK, so a few years later, it's worth $17 million. Now those $7 shares are worth $17. And that's important because that can be translated into capital when you take investment in the company. Obviously, it creates a valuation in the marketplace should you seek a merger or an acquisition and as I said, further investment. So that's an important part of increasing shareholder value. Probably everyone has heard some term, something like that. That's really the goal of a company, is to increase the shareholder value.
Wonderful.
So that shift in business focus enabled that valuation, when it could very easily, and I think this is something that's important to identify as well, it could very easily have gone the other way when the business was divested, right, of half of its customer base. So when facing that potential downturn in valuation, he actually turned it into, by addressing new markets, actually turned it into a value creation. So that's pretty impressive.
Wonderful. That's a perfect way. I appreciate you jumping in and walking us through that. So Kabir, Jenny, we're going to talk about some regional topics here in just a moment. Kabir also mentioned the word coopetition, which, for whatever worth, that's really, when it rains, it pours. We've been talking a lot about coopetition this week, which is just whatever I can't remember the French word for when two words come together. I think it's French, but basically it's cooperation and competition, right? As Kabir described it, it's a really interesting element to this industry and this time we live in, where you got companies directly competing on one hand, and then they're working together and exchanging money and resources and everything else on the other hand. So it's fascinating. Kabir mentioned that coopetition. Let me share this comment from Amanda. And Amanda's a big fan of Zippy Logistics, saying Zippy Logistics has grown from 7 million to 17 million, as Kabir is sharing, serving most popular household brands across Nigeria, handling deliveries for vendors to the major retailers nationwide. Good stuff there, Amanda. Okay, Jenny, we've got some questions for Kabir, kind of around what we're seeing from a supply chain topical standpoint locally, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important always to highlight maybe some of the challenges that an organization like Zippy has functioning in a country as diverse as Nigeria is, and in a continent as diverse as Africa is. And I think, what are some of the immediate challenges? Obviously infrastructure is one, but listening to Greg and his lack of electricity, I think infrastructure is rapidly becoming everybody's challenge. What else would you say, Kabir, that's very different to doing business in Nigeria to perhaps doing it anywhere else in the world? Because I know that there are some unique elements that you have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to touch a bit more about coopetition, because I just remembered something that I wanted to share. I think it's really interesting. So I've got a master's in a course called Innovation Management and Entrepreneurship. You basically turn ideas into businesses. And that's when I first fell in love with supply chain. So one of the courses I studied was the diffusion and adoption of disruptive innovation. So diffusion, let me try that again. The diffusion and adoption of disruptive innovation. So what that means is like the telephone. Like when the mobile phones came in, eradicated telephone. So basically, how do you diffuse these kind of products into the market, and how do you get them adopted? One of the key components of that is called competitive competencies. Now, competitive competencies is exactly the same theory as coopetition. Because it's basically the way you have a television where LG makes the screen, Sony makes the speakers, and Samsung makes the technology. And they all work together. All the TVs we buy are all coming from the same company. They're all done in the same factory, and all the companies do different components. So competition happens in other industries. Supply chain just needs to catch up.
Yes. Well, let's talk about this a little bit more too, because Greg, we talk a lot about Amazon, of course, and you look at the shippers, the carriers rather.
Yeah.
And we've seen a parting of ways in some cases, but they're directly competing and moving product. But then they're working together, and that's the only way to get product out, especially throughout this sustained peak season we've been seeing, right?
Yes.
It's amazing.
I'll give you a stronger point. I had to put my foot down 6 years ago when the two major e-commerce players in Nigeria, I was the only company working for the both of them, because I had the largest fleet, so I could work with both of them across the state. They asked me that for me to keep working, that I had to drop one or the other. They made me choose. I said, I'm not going to choose. You both go figure it out, because I will put your packages and your packages in the same vehicle, and I'll deliver it to the same customer, because it's the cheapest thing for you. Unless you plan on taking on the cost for the other person, I suggest you get comfortable with the idea that you and your competition are using the same delivery routes and find other things to compete about. And we have to all work it out.
So how often do you have to put your foot down? Kabir, it seems like to me that you are not scared of putting your foot down.
That takes me to Jenny's question. Because she asked about
exactly
in Nigeria. I tend to put my foot down quite a bit, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm a strong believer in like going with my gut. Not everything always works out, but you need to always know that, look, sometimes you just have to go with what you know feels right. And if you don't drink your own Kool-Aid, no one else is going to buy it. So, like, so yeah, and then the thing about it is, even for when we pivot, for the scary time of my life, you're literally telling me I'm about to take my business. And then the funny thing happened when I got into the supermarket industry. I was offered all the vendors in the supermarket industry if I worked directly with the largest retailer, ShopRite in Nigeria. I said to them, no, thank you. They were like, what do you mean, no, thank you? I was like, nope, I'd rather go approach every single vendor that supplies you one by one and spend the next 5 years of my life signing them up. They were like, we can give you these people in 1 day. I was like, thank you, I don't want it because I will be tied to you. And now what I want instead is I want to work with those vendors directly. So when those vendors tell me, go to ShopRite, I'll go there. Go to Spar, I'll go there. Go anywhere else, I'll go there. But now if I work with you, I'll be exclusively tied to going with you. And I will not have any competition between any supermarket thing. Now, because of my company, I am the major link between the supermarkets, the vendors, and their competitors. So everyone in the ecosystem knows that I'm a safe space where they can all do business. And to create that kind of environment in Nigeria, you need to put your foot down significantly.
I love it. I think we all need to learn how to put our foot down much more often. So, Greg, I want to bring you in again, talking about this ecosystem and finding ways of force multipliers and finding ways to kind of lever up ventures initially. This is an important element that Kabir is describing. What are some of the thoughts that it conjures up in your mind between those ears, which I'm always curious about exactly what you're thinking about. What comes to your mind?
Well, I think what jumps out at me about what Kabir's done with Zippy is he has introduced a more mature business approach than I've ever experienced. Not that I've spent a lot of time in Nigeria, but I've experienced on the continent in Africa in many countries where it is a little bit less, it's a little Wild Westy, right? It's a little bit less civilized. It's a little bit less visionary. It's more sort of grinding out the business and saying some of the things that Kabir faced, but to recognize and to be able to enunciate to those other business leaders. And Kalahari, I assume, is one of the companies you're working with, Kabir, but some of these companies, e-com and marketplace companies in Africa are enormous. And to be able to say that and educate them on a more visionary and sustainable way of doing business, that's really incredibly valuable.
Agreed.
So
Okay.
I think that's the thing that jumps out at me, aside from the physical logistics aspect of it. But I think that is a really important aspect of changing the way that business is done.
Love that. So let me, Jenny, I know you're, let's stick to this sense of community, this ecosystem for a second, because I know you're a big believer in that and are a regular, you're helping to build, and building your organization is, this ecosystem. Why is that so important in a year like 2021?
2021, I don't know yet, but growing on 2020, I think that it got us all through. Community definitely, from a South African, from our membership point of view, and even not just South African, I think, and we were talking earlier about, thank goodness we've got the internet. Imagine if the pandemic had happened 10 years ago and we weren't able to do this. We found that the world has become very much smaller, and as a result of which we're getting to know people better. I met Kabir 2 years ago in Abuja, and since then have had 3 further engagements with him, which I probably wouldn't have had again necessarily unless he had traveled to South Africa or I had been lucky enough to go back to Abuja or back to Nigeria. And the inter-Africa travel is such that it's very complex, it's very expensive. And so it's not really the first thing you do. So from our perspective, being able to build an African community of supply chain professionals throughout 2020 has been really a really cool thing out of the pandemic. If it's okay to say cool things come out of it, I don't know, but it's definitely a positive. And I think we've seen through generations, wherever there's crisis, community pulls us through. And that certainly has helped us last year, and I believe it's gonna be the same thing this year.
Agreed. And we're big believers and big fans of the silver linings and the key lessons learned, and finding opportunity without being opportunistic, as our dear friend Kevin Bell shared. And it's a good one. Yeah. So let me share a couple of comments from our audience, and then Kabir, I'm gonna come back to you because I want to talk about this changing perception of supply chain. So Davin's a big fan of when you said put your foot down and you mean it. That garnered a few comments from our audience here. Rhonda shared, so many industries have learned to share best practices since COVID, really showed that we are all connected more than we consciously think about going about our day-to-day lives. A great thing. I agree with you, Rhonda. Peter mentioned knowing when you have the leverage or power and when to use it is priceless. It reminds me of a song by the late and great Kenny Rogers, right? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and what a classic song that is.
Did you learn about that song in Ireland, Kabir?
Well, maybe. So one last comment here, and Kabir, I'm going to come back to you. Rhonda says, can I just say Zippy is just fun to say and easy to recall, smart company name that gets one's attention, totally random thought. I agree with you.
Thank you.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
So Kabir, let's talk about this changing perception of supply chain. It's been a wonderful and a beautiful thing to watch. So, in particular, you already touched on it. We touched on it pre-show, and of course, it's part of your go-to market messaging, which I love. You reference sales growth and access to new markets via fast and responsive supply chain. You talk about empowering entrepreneurs as part of y'all's MO. I love that. So talk to us a little bit about that and a little about this evolving definition, conception, what folks think of when they hear supply chain. And if we lose Kabir, I'll just circle to Greg and Jenny. So Kabir, talk that a little bit.
All right, so it's funny. This is a very funny, interesting question because, so when I first started Zippy, I was still director at the C40 cities. I was working for Mayor Bloomberg at the time. So I sat my family down. I was like, hey guys, so I'm going to quit this good paying job and I'm going to go start running a couple of bikes around the city. They thought I was crazy. They thought, yeah, you definitely lost your marbles. Like my mom was not having it. She thought it was a very crazy thing to do. But I saw there was a vision. E-commerce was coming to Nigeria. It was going to set up, and there was a big gap in the market because we didn't have DHL and UPS doing last mile delivery. And there's an opportunity to break in. So I said to them, look, it may not look like a glamorous job. I remember the first 2 years it was hard because supply chain isn't given the respect that it deserves. Supply chain professionals are more skilled than lawyers. What they do is not simple. You have to be organized. You have to be efficient. You have to be skilled at what you do. And to be a supply chain professional, people just think of it as truckers and it's not a glamorous role as people think it. But the thing about it actually is more glamorous because everything has a supply chain element to it. So the first year was a struggle for me. I went from being heavily respected in the renewable energy space and as a director, as a consultant, to a truck coordinator or like a bike owner. So I didn't like the image. I didn't like what it was doing for my reputation. I didn't like what it was doing for my career. So, but after I put my head down and stuck there. But I think now it's now becoming more accepted because now they've seen the companies getting the sales, the valuations. People are now trying to pay a bit more attention to the industry. And I'm like, where was this energy a few years ago when I needed it? But luckily I stuck through. So that's just an interesting thing about how sometimes you need to understand the value of supply chain. Even in the military, we've done contracts for the military to help the military design the bike infantry. what kind of bikes they should use, where they should use them, in the top terrain they're going against the Boko Haram. We've done transactions for Total to help them build e-commerce platforms for their staff in-house so they can purchase stuff. We've done end-to-end transactions for supermarkets where we can help them import directly from the manufacturer to the shippers, to the store, down to the shelves, end-to-end. Like, we've helped people design things that save them so much money. The thing that should be attached to supply chain is it saves you money. It doesn't bring you new customers, but if you're a company, supply chain will definitely save you money if you have the right system.
Love that. So you shared a lot there, Kabir, and I love, if you can't tell, if anyone can't tell, and maybe they're dead if they can't tell, Kabir is full of passion, and I love that. So Kabir, I hope the book's coming in the next couple of months. There's so much to dissect here. Greg and Jenny, and Greg, I know we're going to be talking more about visibility and some elements of the community in Africa, but really quick, Greg and Jenny, weigh in on this, on some of what Kabir shared in particular about the evolving perception of supply chain. Jenny, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think that, again, if we can talk about another COVID silver lining, it's that the general public is starting to pick up on the fact that it's not just the magic fairies that are restocking the shelves in the supermarket. There are actually real living, breathing people and processes behind this miraculous restocking. And so I do believe that there is now this opportunity, and to see in countries like England and in countries like America, to see experts who have really only been visible to us on LinkedIn and at various conferences as whoopee-doopie keynote speakers who we pay a fortune to go and listen to. And they're now on Good Morning UK and Good Morning USA TV program, talking to non-supply chain people, talking to the end consumer. I think that's hugely, hugely exciting, and it's definitely an enormous progression in a very short space of time.
I completely agree. Greg, I'm coming to you next after I share a couple of comments and get your take, and then we can roll into the next segment here. Yeah. T Squared, it's the gambler. That's right. The late Kenny Rogers, the gambler. Yeah. Thank you. I should know that. Amanda might shoot me in the foot since I didn't, but great song. Paula, you might have some T-shirts, Kabir, with your likeness and this phrase on it. Paula says, love it, Kabir Shagaya. Quote, if you don't drink your own Kool-Aid, no one's going to buy it. Gary was a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of that saying. Greg, let's go to you next. So follow up, piggyback on these comments here, and then we'll roll right into other topics.
Yeah. So my litmus test for whether supply chain has reached a level of esteem is my youngest sister, who is a trust fund baby, who doesn't know anything about the world except how to spend money. When I have dinner with her now, I don't have to explain what supply chain is. She knows what supply chain is and has posted about it on Instagram. So I know that we have reached the pinnacle when that happens. But in all seriousness, I think the important thing is to think of the progression of supply chain. Supply chain was essentially called operations at one point. And, this progression is not universal globally, but in the States and other developed countries, it kind of progressed like this. It was operations. It was those guys, as Kabir was describing, in dirty shirts, lifting dirty boxes onto dirty trucks, and going down dirty roads, delivering the product to a dirty factory that built it into a product that we could clean up and put on the shelves somewhere. But it evolved into from basically really grinding business to really more than operations. It became a necessary evil. It evolved to a necessary evil. Nobody likes supply chain, and they don't like the people in supply chain, but they know they're necessary to get those goods to the marketplace. They're weird. They are still kind of dirty. They're really blunt, and and all of that. And then we started to recognize that there's a strategic advantage in having an excellent supply chain. And this is how the evolution sort of started, is people learned that it's not a necessary evil. It's a necessary. And that it can differentiate your business from the other businesses in your industry. And then #COVID happened. And we realized that it's even more than a strategic differentiator. It is really the shepherd of your brand identity and your brand equity and your customer experience. Because as we've heard from other talented people we've talked to through Jenny, no product, no program. So, you know, the recognition that, as Jenny so eloquently puts it, it's not supply chain fairies that make sure stuff is on the shelf. It is a vast and complex network of, as Kabir was talking about, talented and dedicated and committed and intellectual as well as physical people in the supply chain industry, assuring that we get literally every single thing that we need or desire. You don't get any of those things without supply chain.
All right. Did everybody capture the last 2 minutes? That was gold. Really, Jenny, you and all three of y'all. This is nothing but gold. Gold manufacturers here, the three of y'all, Kabir, Jenny, and Greg. So, Greg, what we want to go next, and Kabir, where we want to go next. We want to talk about.
I mean, even with all of the advancements and all of the things that you've overcome, Kabir, and all of the things that I think you've helped to, and Jenny, you and your organization as well, have helped to evolve in terms of business maturity in supply chain in Africa. I'm curious, what else is out there to be done, or what still does not get enough focus from your standpoint? Kabir, you want to?
Yeah, so that's kind of like what I'm going into next. So I need to talk to you guys a bit about my model. So what I've done is I've built something called Transit. Transit, I remember I sat down in the office one day at like 9 p.m. at night, and I thought to myself, how can I make the supermarket industry in Nigeria different? So I explained the problems in the industry to you guys so you can get a better sense of exactly why I love my ideas, my transit so much. Supermarkets in Nigeria ask you to deliver to each branch by yourself. So if you're a vendor, let's say you're supplying orange juice, you'll be told to go to every branch in every state and drop off your orders. So they treat all the LPOs as individual orders. So as a business, and there's no minimum order quantity. So a supermarket, which is in Abuja, can order literally 2 cartons of juice, and you have to get those 2 cartons to the supermarket, or they're going to give you another LPO. The cost of getting 2 cartons to the supermarket costs more than the value of the 2 cartons itself. So now, as a vendor, you start to cherry pick orders and only do the orders around your proximity that are close to you. So you become a regional business, and you don't get to supply everybody. Then the smaller businesses don't want to do it, and the bigger businesses, they don't feel the need to do it because they feel like it's not worth the while. So they wait for the orders to pile up. Shelves are always empty, nothing's going on. The supermarkets are not working. So I thought to myself, what's the best way to make this possible for everyone? What I did is I created a system where you don't get charged per delivery. So from the 1st to the 31st of the month, you have like literally, it's called an advanced billing system. And I'll tell you a funny story about how I found out what it was called after. It's called an advanced billing system. What it is, from the 1st to the 31st of the month, you have a membership, like your data plan on your phone. What you do is everything you move, we weigh the kg. If you move 1,000 kg between the 1st and 31st, accumulated tonnage at the end of the month is what we charge you. So it doesn't matter where you go. If you go to Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Kano, Enugu, anywhere you go in the country, it's the same price. Now, what now happens is that we calculate the weight of your cartons, not per trip, at the end. So what that means is that if you move 10,000 kg in week 1, 1,000 in week 2, 1 kg in week 3, and 1 in week 4, you're only going to pay for 11,002 kg, regardless. That moves logistics from a variable cost in the business to a fixed cost in the business. And the reason why I can do that is because I created a timetable. So everyone and all my clients know that the truck to Abuja leaves on Monday, Enugu or Owerri leaves on Tuesday, Asaba Calabar leaves on Wednesday, Ibadan Ilorin leaves on Thursday, and Abuja leaves on Friday again, because Abuja has more demand. Once you know the timetable, you have to get your goods to me the day before the truck leaves. Now, because of that, I have been able to consolidate everybody on the same truck. And the way I got this idea was because me and my mates went out one night, where there were about 10 of us we went to a nightclub, and we said to ourselves, we spent about, I think, about $100 each, and there were 10 of us, and we spent $1,000. I'm like, wow, we looked quite good spending $1,000 in the club. However, when I didn't go out with them and it was only me paying, I spent that same $1,000. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And that's when I realized the value of consolidation means you have more people doing the exact same thing, having the exact same amount of fun, you get to save a lot of money. Same thing with private jet. If you have 20 people first class on an airline from Lagos to London, it's more expensive than renting a private jet for the same amount of people. All you have to do is make sure everybody goes at the same time to the same place. That's the trick. So what I did was...
So this is like a rolling nightclub party for product, is what it is.
Greg.
I love it.
The eureka moments spawned by a night out with your friends.
Right.
It's funny where we get our inspirations. I went back to the office the next day, sat down, figured out how am I going to build this. As the first thing you need to do is build a timetable, make everyone follow it religiously. Second thing you need to do is create a billing system that it doesn't make a difference. If you miss the first truck and you get the second truck, it doesn't cost you any more or any less. So I had to figure out, how do I do that? I now, because I didn't own my assets at the time, I figured out the cost of an asset when they got to Abuja. I said, okay, fine. If I have 20 people on this asset, I will cover my cost by the 10th person. Everyone after 10 is profit, consolidation. So with that model, I now started to offer this to people. The first few months was rough because I didn't have enough people to meet the break even. But then after that, when you started getting more and more vendors and more clients, and you have to have a good balance between the heavy clients and the low clients. And how we bill you is very interesting. If you move between 0 to 1,000 kg, you pay 100,000 naira. 1 to 2,000 is 200, and 2 to 3,000 is 300. So the range goes on like that. So wherever you fall at the end of the month, you just pay the price range the category which you fall into. So we even had creative names for the categories at some point. We had like Optimus Prime. We had like different creative names for the categories. We made it fun, you know what I mean? And then the thing about it was good because people liked it. People like, you know what, I'm so sick and tired of having to negotiate with truck drivers of how much it's going to cost to get my goods to the supermarket. Like, it's just, the hassle is gone. To the point where the supermarket now started approaching me saying, look, Kabir, we're having price negotiation issues with our vendors. They're telling us that they need to increase the price, the recommended price of their products on our shelf because the logistics in Nigeria is becoming too expensive. And your logistics system, your contracts are for 12 months. You change your prices every 12 months. So what we need you to do is, we need you to sit in the room when we're negotiating prices with the vendors, and whenever they come up and say, yeah, we're going to increase the price because of logistics, like, nope, need Kabir. They're going to make sure the prices don't change for a year. So all the fights between the supermarkets and the vendors, I stopped all of their issues by making sure that they had a fixed price for logistics, and that was it.
Love it. Kabir, we need to bring you to some other challenges we're having across supply chain. It sounds like you've got a magic wand somewhere. But let me shift gears here for a second. Because you mentioned Transformers, Optimus Prime. Were you a big Transformers as a kid? Big into Transformers?
Definitely. Even it was like it had the whole Optimus Prime designs and everything on the flyers. It was. I think people need to think like, this boy is definitely crazy because he has a very serious company which is doing a big serious service, but he keeps putting all these cartoons and calling his company Zippy. Like, it's not a serious name like moving logistics. So it's just, I just think that whatever you're gonna do, put your character into it and make it fun and make it your own, make it your identity. The whole idea of Zippy, it's a young company from young people with young minds. Everyone that works for me was everyone that works for me is under the age of 35. I try and make sure I keep the company young because at the end of the day, and no one has any supply chain experience. They all learn on the job, and I try and teach and pass knowledge down as much as I possibly can to make sure that the heads of my company right now have limited to no logistics experience, but they've all learned on the job.
So, all right. So that might elicit a difference of opinions about where you get innovation and ideas from. But hey, that's okay. That's the beauty thing. That's the beautiful part of having these conversations. And I love the Zippy story. And most importantly, I love your passion for driving change and doing things differently and creating more value and creating entities in the marketplace. So it's fascinating. And an hour never does it justice, but I want to give Greg and Jenny a chance to kind of weigh in on some of what you just shared there. And Jenny, let's start with you. Out of all the change and innovation and everything Kabir is driving and touching his teams, you name it, what do you find? What really sticks out to you that one of your favorite elements here today?
Well, I find it really depressing that I'm too old to go and work for Zippy Logistics. But, apart from that, I just think that one of the things that I'm so passionate about is just making the rest of the world understand the sheer and absolute brilliance that we have on the African continent. And so often it gets ignored, or it gets playing second fiddle to West or East, and there is just so much brilliance. And I really, again, it goes back to organizations and people like yourselves who give us the platform to be able to highlight the sheer brilliance that's here. And listening to Kabir, I can't imagine a night out with Kabir. I think I'd just be so confused as to which way we were going. And the fact that it can come back to such a focused outcome is remarkable. So yeah, I'm totally overawed.
Love it. Hey, before Greg, you weigh in, I want to share this comment from Amanda. Amanda says, logistics in Nigeria is organized chaos. Love it. And there's several comments here around Transformers. Looks like Peter is a fellow big Transformer guru or lover as well. All right, so Greg.
Is he a Transformers
I think so. He
fan,
says,
or is he just a Megan Fox fan?
He has got a comment there.
That's true.
Was a great one. Pulled on the heartstrings there with that one. All right, so Greg, what's some your favorite part or two about what Kabir is sharing?
Well, that which is old is new again. Look, scheduled routes, right? Milk routes, as we call them in the States, right? I really think that we have to recognize that we have given so much flexibility to our supply chain in so many of the, I don't even know why I say this, developed countries. I guess we have to fall into that category. But there's value in what Kabir is doing, not only in Nigeria, but in other areas. And there are companies that are making hay by doing such things. But the predictability that creates, right, is really, really valuable. And there is a segment of market in every single country in the world that could use exactly the tactic that he's using there. And I think so often we create such flexibility, and in supply chain, the pendulum often swings one direction or the other, right? We often talk about being having too much money tied up in inventory or being completely out of stock, and the pendulum tends to swing back and forth. We talk about really flexible routing, or we talk about milk routes, and somewhere in between is usually the real case, is the real opportunity, is that there is a right answer for milk routes and there is a right answer for completely flexible routing. So I think that this, if anything, if anyone should take anything away from this, is think simply, right? Occam's razor, the simplest solution is usually the best.
Very nice. I love that.
There's a company in America there are two companies in the world that I've seen, that I've studied their models, and very similar to mine. There's Ocado in the UK. Ocado is Waitrose's supply delivery company, which is now an e-commerce platform. Funny enough, they started off as a logistics company like us, and then because they have so much inventory from vendors, they have enough stock to launch their own platform. That's why they have an e-commerce website. It's brilliant. And then the second company is in America called K-Stack. Now, K-Stack is, they're the ones that do the back end for Walmart and all the major, Walgreens and all the major supermarket retailers. Like, you have the exact, and it's so funny, like, I didn't know about these companies till about 2 years into my model. So it gives you that rhetorical closure when you see that nothing new, there's nothing new under the sun, where what you've created has, it verifies that you're not crazy, that, you're doing something that makes sense. Even though it may look like we're doing the exact same thing, but in different parts of the world, someone else is going to figure it out. And I think I met with a professor from MIT who I was having a conversation with about my model. And he goes, oh yeah, we have that. That's what we call an advanced billing system. I was like, sorry, what now? So there's a name for this? He was like, there's actually the whole theory and the whole course on it. I was like, so people pay a lot of money to go to MIT to learn something that you can just figure out.
With a Google search.
Yeah, or with Kabir. Or with a beer with Kabir.
Or with a night out with Kabir. Yeah.
Right. So, all right. So Kabir, let's make sure, folks, as we start to wind things down, I think, I'm not sure who we were talking to last week, but similar passion, similar energy, and we should connect the electrical grid to these folks and create sustainable power cities on what Kabir is doing. And be honest, passion, the ideas and how he's taking action to really make it a reality. So Kabir, two new fans here. Jenny already was a big Kabir fan. But let's make sure folks can connect with you and Zippy Logistics. So what's the best way there?
So Zippy, we have our website. We're just about to move into our large warehouse, 6,000 square feet warehouse, because another arm of our business, which we started now, is warehouse. Because of the milk runs and because of the schedule that we have, a lot of our clients say, look, we can't keep coming to your warehouse the day before your delivery. We're coming to your warehouse 6 times a week. So how about we just give you all our stock for a month? And when we get orders, we send them to you virtually, and you just process, pack, and ship out our orders. So now we've got so much demand for warehousing that we've had to move to a bigger location. So we moved to a bigger location in a couple of weeks. So that's, fingers crossed, looking forward to that.
There is no bad news in your world, Kabir. It's all good news and growth. I love it.
We've had a good time. COVID last year was one of our best years, because we were very key in the COVID response to supermarkets across the country. A lot of people were shut down. A lot of our vendors thought they were going to lose their businesses. A lot of small businesses thought they weren't going to survive. But we made sure we stayed open. We got all the necessary approvals. We got all the trucks on time. We did not close for a single day during the whole year of COVID. Because my staff, I need to just take a shout out to my employees because they are the best team in the world. Like, I remember the first day they announced the lockdown, I sat down with my team and I asked them, guys, I can't force you to come to work because everyone's scared for their lives. And I'm not even in Lagos right now, so I can't even be there with you. So if you guys all take a vote and say we shouldn't go to work and we should just shut this down for a couple of weeks, I will completely understand and we will respect that decision. They refused. They said, look, we will put in the safety measures. We'll get a hotel right next to the warehouse. We'll come to work every day and we'll ship out these trucks. And not only did they do that, they made sure that every supermarket and the amount of people that got fed because of the hard workers on my team, they're essential. And I would like to use this opportunity to thank all of them. And for them, when they see this, they know that I appreciate every single one of them.
Love that, Kabir. So how can
superheroes?
Yeah, absolutely. With just minus the capes. Kabir, what is the website? So how can folks, apply to join your team or work with you? What's the website?
So we have zippy.com.ng. That's our website, zippy.com.ng. You can find us on Instagram. We have our Instagram at Zippy Logistics, and we do have LinkedIn, and I think we have Twitter. I'm not very good at social media because we're very B2B. But our website is the best way to contact us. We currently check all our messages, and you can also send us an email at info@zippy.com.ng. We're always happy to respond. We do a lot of international. Funny enough, we're in Dubai in 2 weeks because we represent Nigeria for international trade. So we represent all Nigerian businesses, Nigerian Export Promotion Council. But every Nigerian finished product that wants to be FMCG that wants to be sold out of Nigeria comes through Zippy, and we help facilitate trade across Africa and across the globe. So we're going to be in Dubai. So please, if anyone's in Dubai in 2 weeks for the Gulf Food 2021, please come to the Nigeria stand where Zippy will be running the stand and be promoting 50 of the top Nigerian businesses who are ready for export.
Love it. Big fan. Really appreciate you carving some time out and sharing your POV and your journey and your innovation with our community here. We've been talking with Kabir Shagaya, founder and CEO of Zippy Logistics, and we hope to see you soon, really soon, Kabir. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Kabir.
Thanks, guys.
All righty.
Thanks, Kabir.
Wow. Man, usually I come out here with about 17 pages of notes. Greg, I might just have 47 pages of notes.
47. Wow.
My right hand is hurting. But kidding aside, we need more leaders like Kabir in not just global supply chain, but global business, right? I love UPS has this phrase, constructive dissatisfaction, right? It was one of the founder. I can't remember the founder's name, but it was a mantra of his, and it permeated the culture there. And there's a lot of constructive dissatisfaction that Kabir has, and he's setting out to do it better, right? And build a really special organization. So it really resonated with me. What about y'all?
You want to go first, Jenny?
I think it's the world needs more people with energy and positivity and drive. like that, that can be harnessed as well. It's not just all over the place. So it's a fascinating and really rare mix, I think. And so it's exciting. It's exhausting, but it's exciting. And I can't imagine trying to keep up with all the ideas and just innovation that goes through and gets executed. It's incredible.
Excellent point, Greg.
That's why he can't have old folks like us in the business.
I know, exactly. That's the point.
And I'm thankful for age discrimination laws in the United States. But I think, truthfully, what's really important is he's a man fit for his time, right? I mean, this is what Nigeria and other probably sub-Saharan African companies or countries need in terms of logistics skills and last mile, and clearly he's got the knowledge, the interest, the passion, intellect to take it on. So I think that's a really, really important discovery. And also, I mean, think about this: studying companies with only fringe attachment to the industry or to the specific industry. And also well outside his own geography. I bet there's a lot that people in quote unquote developed countries could learn from getting outside their own borders to discover what other companies and countries are doing as well.
Well said.
And
absolutely.
All that's before you even touch on his knowledge about climate and climate change and everything else. So it's a great mix.
Agreed. All right. So wonderful conversation on this kickoff episode of our new series with the great people over at SAPICS, the one and only Jenny Froome, the one and only Kabir Shagaya, for that matter. So what a great, we set the bar high for this first episode. Now, let's pay the bills just for a second. We've got a couple of webinars coming up I want to share before we wrap up here today. So coming up, starting with February 17th, talking about transformers. Transforming supply chains to make a positive impact on the world around us with our friends at Kinaxis. Jenny, he's very difficult question I'm going to pose to you. Are you a big fan of Twix?
Twix, the chocolate bar.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So we have got one of the most important supply chains represented on this webinar with Mars, right? The maker of a variety of chocolate and all the goodies a lot of the goodies you can think of. So that's going to be a big part of this webinar session on the February 17th. And I'll see, Greg, we're working on some free samples, right?
Are we? Good. Yes. Yes, we are, Scott.
Oh,
if you're not, I am. Yes.
We'll answer to come on that, Jenny, but we'll share. If we get some free samples, Jenny, we'll share for sure. And then let's see here on the 23rd of February with our friends at Omnia Partners, we've got a really interesting panel full of different sectors. They're going to be talking about how they're navigating from a supply chain perspective, navigating, the 2020 to 2021s, especially with a lot of procurement conversation baked in on that one. So with folks from Parker Hannifin, Ace Hardware, Rent-A-Center, Ace Hardware, you're talking about a hot industry, to do it yourself and everything they represent. Hot. So check that out on February 23rd. Amanda, I believe we've got the links in the show notes, if I'm not mistaken. supplychainnow.com. If you miss it, we will be there to give you whatever you need in terms of content goodness here. So if my mouse will cooperate, there we are. Great conversation here today, Jenny. I really, really, I can't say it enough. I love, you've got a connector quality about you and always giving, as Greg coined here, giving forward. And those are kind of people and kindred spirits that really we love to work with, right? Because that's how we view the world too. And when you view the world that way, it becomes a much smaller place, right? And life's a lot more fun. So a really big tip of the hat. We didn't ask you though, your next big project or initiative at SAPICS. So please share and let's make sure folks can connect with you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, first of all, I'm very, very relieved that TWIX is not another acronym for supply chain management that I needed to learn.
Not yet. Not yet.
Really concerned me.
Right.
And then being sensible and grown up, our next project is a collaboration with an organization called Smart Procurement, with who we put together Africa Supply Chain in Action. And it's slightly left of our center, and it's about, it's called Made in Africa, and it's connecting buyers. And it's very exciting. And we will have all the information on our website. And our website is something you said it earlier, www.sapics.org.
That's right.
And you can put the .za in, or ZA if you want to.
Well, love what y'all do. Love to collaborate with you. We love this new series. If everyone's gonna be like Kabir, man, we're gonna have to ramp up our technology mainframe here, Greg. We'll see.
Undoubtedly.
Thank you.
But a pleasure. This has been Jenny Froome, COO of SAPICS, with us here today. Greg, great show. I appreciate a great week of shows, man. The production has been
amazing.
The demand is just, we got to build a bigger factory, Greg.
Yes, we do. I don't know how we create more of you and me, but I feel like it's going to take some artificial intelligence, at least on my part.
Jenny, I'm not sure if the world is ready for two Greg White.
I was going to say, I'm not sure that's such a great idea. Let's just keep the unique versions.
Well, to quote one of my favorite shows, Hee Haw, if it weren't for artificial intelligence, I'd have no intelligence at all.
Well, on that note, that's a perfect jumping off note here, but great show. Big thanks to Jenny and the SAPICS team. Huge thanks to Kabir with Zippy Logistics for joining us here today. Big thanks to Greg and, of course, folks behind the scenes, Amanda and Clay. We couldn't do it without you. Huge thanks to our community. I know we couldn't get to all the comments here today. Wonderful stuff. We've got some other Twix fans, including Peter, not calling you out or anything. Ramatu, great to see you. We've got to have you back on the show really soon. To you all, hey, on behalf of our entire team here, first off, check us out at supplychainnow.com. Find us wherever you get your podcast from. But much more important, do good, give forward, and be the change that is needed right now. And on that note, we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.